You are either 1 week away from the playoffs starting, or you start playoffs this week, and we are going to talk about some hidden playoff gems on today's episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas podcast. Welcome in Lucas Wenzel, Cameron Lawrence, and Tyler Plath. Another episode with all three fellas. How are we doing tonight?
Devastated, but got to support the national champs, so wear my FSU hat.
Seriously, if this is going to be another UCF
Ty,
thing, I don't want it.
Play the clip. You can get out. That's a pre-show joke, but we'll stick to in-episode jokes from here on out now. Yes, the fantasy playoffs are upon us. Some of you might start in week 14, play weeks 14, 15, 16, 17. Others of you might start in week 15, go 15, 16, 17. If you play in week 18, our condolences to you. You should talk to your league manager and make sure you never do that ever again. But we're going to talk about some hidden playoff gems this year. Guys who now, because of some injuries sustained in week 13, all of a sudden have the opportunity to step up late season, or some other guys who we're starting to see blossom in the late season as well. Fellas, I won't waste anybody else's time. Let's dive on in and discuss these playoff gems. Now, some of you might be asking, well, didn't you guys just talk about potential playoff heroes like 2 weeks ago? Yes, we did. But the difference between playoff heroes and playoff gems is we're going to get a bit more like down and dirty and nasty in today's episode with some of the names we're talking about. These are guys, like we look at when Rashadd Penny was a league winner, a playoff hero 2 years ago. He was out on waiver wires. He wasn't being rostered by anybody. It was a matter of opportunity that he took advantage of. Amon-Ra St. Brown, yeah, he blossomed late in the season. He was floating around rosters all season long. A lot of the times, these playoff heroes aren't always guys who we've been rostering the entire season. They can actually be some of the down and dirty guys who are on the waiver wire that nobody wants on their team, but have a great chance at making a late season push for your fantasy team. So we're going to explore who some of those options might be with injuries that popped up in week 13, with favorable schedules down the stretch, guys who are blossoming late season. As I said, we're going to discuss a few of those names right now. And Cameron, your first guy that you're going to talk about is actually benefiting at the potential cost of a guy who was injured in week 13. We never like to see injuries, but your first player could potentially take advantage of it.
Yeah, it's Romeo Doubs, and unfortunately, I have to talk about him after he just beat me this week. Was the reason I took an L, but he is going to step up in the absence of Christian Watson. Watson has had his second hamstring injury so far this season, his fifth since he got into the NFL. You know, even if he does come back in 2 weeks or whatever, that first game back, we saw it with the one he had earlier. He's not going to be 100%. Running crisp routes fully back in the offense. So it's going to take a little bit in games without Christian Watson this season. The first 4 games of the season, Doubs saw 18.6, 5, 18.3, and 18.5 fantasy points in those 4 games. And in week 3 and week 4, he saw 12 and 13 targets. He has seen double-digit PPR fantasy points every week, but 4 so far this season, 5 of his last 7 games since the bye. He is a red zone threat. That is something that you got to like about Doubs. He's got 7 touchdowns so far, and he's 11th in red zone targets according to player profile. And the schedule is juicy, especially these next 2 weeks.
Awesome.
Getting the Giants and Tampa. Oh my gosh, these are 2 of the worst pass defenses right now. And then he gets Carolina, who's been good against the pass. That's in part because they've been so bad against the run, I think. But they've also been decent against pass. And then Minnesota, they're like a bend, don't break kind of defense where they'll give up the yards, they'll give up the receptions. They don't necessarily all the time give up touchdowns, but they're a team that they can throw against. And let's be honest, this Green Bay team looks good. They just beat Detroit and Kansas City in back-to-back in primetime games. I guess, depending on if you want to call it, a noon game on Thanksgiving primetime. I'm going to call it primetime.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, I don't know. I don't think there's any reason why we should be out on Romeo Doubs. Obviously, Jaden Reed and Dontavian Wicks have kind of emerged a little bit more as the season's gone on, so I don't think he'll see quite the same, maybe not the same target share he saw in week 3 and 4, but I think that Romeo Doubs is, I think he's a guy that could really be, you just plug him in your lineup and he could be good to go, especially with Christian Watson out.
And I think you could throw Jaden Reed into that ring as well.
Mm-hmm.
He's a guy who we started to see blossom middle of the season. Again, a young rookie wide receiver who is starting to find his footing in the NFL. Now without Christian Watson, we could see him take a step forward as well. But I mean, those numbers that you read at the beginning, Cam, 18 plus in 3 of the first 4 weeks without Christian Watson. I mean, that's nothing to slouch at. Like, that's something we're going down the stretch in these last 4 games. If he strings together 3-4 games of 18 to 20 fantasy points, like that could boost him to top 15 numbers rest of season. And like you said, the schedule is 100% there. Ty, anything you want to add on that?
No, like you said, I think this offense has been spreading the ball around, and it is now Romeo Doubs and Jaden Reed. Like that's what it is, and there's really no reason why neither of them can step up.
And let's also like make this very clear. We're recording this on Monday, December 4th at 4:22 p.m. Central Time. There has been no ruling on Christian Watson's status for week 14 yet, or week 15 beyond that, right? But considering this is his second hamstring injury this year, what did we find out? That it was his 5th of his football career, let's say. Like, this is an injury he's repeatedly struggled with, and we know Green Bay's gosh, why can't I think of the not health staff, their training staff? Golly, I don't know why it took me so long to pull that one up. The training staff is more conservative in recovery timeline as well. So there's certainly a chance Christian Watson doesn't miss time, but we're assuming he does, and the schedule down the stretch bodes very well for the likes of Romeo Doubs. And I think we could throw Jaden Reed's name into that ring as well. Ty, I'll kick it over to you. We're going to stick in the NFC North for your first playoff hidden gem. Talk to me about one of these Minnesota Vikings running backs.
Yeah, it's Ty Chandler, okay? And it feels gross talking about this Vikings rushing attack because it's been mid at best this year. They've had flashes, but more times than not, they have not looked the part. But since Ty Chandler started getting substantial touches in week 10, the team now averages about 4.5 yards a carry, which is almost a full yard more than it was before Ty Chandler started getting substantial touches. And I'm not saying it all comes down to one guy, but it's certainly noteworthy. The Vikings are coming off the bye in week 13. And there was some speculation going into the bye that, maybe it's Josh Dobbs that's going to get benched, and that's going to be Nick Mullins under center or Jaron Hall again. But I think a part of that wasn't being talked about enough was the rushing attack. It would be a very different story. We were in one of our fantasy group chats, Cam, you had pointed out Josh Dobbs may not exactly be the problem. Yes, he had a really bad game against Chicago, but he's an Alexander Madison fumble away from being 3-1. So is it really all on Josh Dobbs, or is there more reason for this Vikings offense not finding such great success in the last game and a half? Because let's think back. Atlanta, great offensive game from Josh Dobbs. New Orleans, great first half, struggled a little bit in the second half. Denver, first half, pretty solid. Second half against Denver, very rocky. And then you got the Chicago game, right? So if there's a change in this offense coming out of the bye week, I wouldn't be surprised if it's actually the running backs. And it's Ty Chandler now more as the featured back than Alexander Madison. And the only reason why Ty Chandler wasn't seeing the field as often before the bye week, I think a lot of people just kind of speculated it was for pass protection purposes. It's, some good old fashioned football talk for you, but Ty Chandler got better in that throughout those games. So if there's, if that was the only reason for holding him out while being the more efficient and better running back, why not make that change now? So I think with the possibility of becoming the lead back in that Vikings backfield, Ty Chandler could actually be a pretty sneaky playoff hero.
I just don't think we can shrug 110 rushing yards against the Broncos. I think that's exactly the point there. Like, yes, Bronco is a suspect run defense now. I mean, you get Vegas and Green Bay out of the bye. Two defense that are also suspect against the run at best. These are games that Ty Chandler can come in and take advantage of. And Alexander Madison has looked better in the last few weeks. My goodness, Ty, you and I, whenever we sit down and watch the Vikings, like, we scream because we know why Alexander Madison is in, because he's been better at pass protection than Ty Chandler. But my gosh, for the first 9 weeks, that dude could not hit a cutback to save his life. And now over the last 3 weeks, that's all I've been watching. And the dude's only missed one or two. And he started hitting them, and it's incredible. But I don't think we can ignore 110 rushing yards. Cam, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think if you're gonna, bank off an efficiency between one of these two guys, between Madison or Chandler, it's gonna be Chandler that you're gonna, lean to the efficiency side of maybe with less touches he can do a little bit more. Obviously, it'll be seeing it. I don't think we can understate too the impact that Justin Jefferson is going to have on this run game.
Yes.
Right? You can't sell out on the run game like you have been. When it doesn't matter who's at quarterback with Justin Jefferson out there, right? You do have to respect him at all time. Maybe you're dropping an extra guy in coverage. So I think that's going to help as well. And like we said when we were talking before, we're talking about hidden playoff gems, right? We're not giving you obvious guys right now. With every guy, there's a chance that, they don't hit at all. That it's, Ty Chandler's, remain the backup. Romeo Doubs is getting outplayed by Jaden Reed. Christian Watson came back healthy. But there is enough upside here that it's, hey, maybe this next week against Vegas, if you're low at running back right now, and I'm looking at, Antonio, well, I guess Gibson's on bye, but something like that, or Ty Chandler.
AJ Dillon.
Yeah, I think I'm going to lean Ty Chandler.
I'm just saying, sometimes you need a little bit of luck. And all I'm pointing out is that luck is there.
I mean, Jerrick McKinnon is a prime example of this, right? All it is, it's a glimmer of pass catching upside. That's what it is. And then it explodes into 20 points a week, right? Like, nobody was telling you to roster Jerrick McKinnon at the start of last year, but wouldn't you know, come end of last season, here he is giving you playoff winning performances. It just takes one glimmer of hope to explode. And that's what we're talking about here. We're not talking again. I think we're going to reinstate this many times throughout the episode. We're not talking about obvious guys. We already did that episode. We're getting down and dirty here. We're talking about some of these other guys, the Rashadd Pennies, the true Amon-Ras, the true Jerrick McKinnons of the fantasy playoffs this year, guys who could explode into being something. Now, my guy that I want to talk about first, he's not exactly this spring chicken, young, high upside guy, but I'll tell you what, Ezekiel Elliott, dare I say we could get the Zeke, not of old, because we're never going to get the Zeke of old, but when we're looking at the final few weeks here for the Patriots, Ramondre Stevenson injured his ankle week 13. He is slated to miss multiple weeks. Now, whether that's 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe it's the rest of the season, is not yet made clear. Again, we're recording this on Monday, about 24 hours after the injury. We don't have that much information yet, but in relief yesterday, Zeke got 17 carries, turned on to 52 yards in a game that was basically entirely on the ground. It was rainy and messy and just terrible football. I hope you didn't watch. But he carried for 52 yards. He also caught 4 of his 5 targets for 40 yards as well. So what I'm seeing here is that if Ramondre's out, Zeke's the guy. Like, he's getting the work here. And you look at the schedule down the stretch. My gosh, Pittsburgh, Kansas City, Denver, Buffalo, the Jets. Those are all matchups that Zeke can take advantage. Now, I don't know if they'll actually be able to hold up against the Chiefs, but it's not like the Chiefs have been a phenomenal run defense this year. They've actually been suspect as of late. I think I've used that word about 5 times now. I need to find a new word.
That's pretty sus of you.
We need the dun 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 Among Us when somebody finds a hidden body. That's the next sound effect that we need.
Yes.
But Pittsburgh, Denver, Buffalo, and the Jets, those are run defenses that Zeke can take advantage of. And if he's the guy and he's catching, 4 passes a game, adding out, we're talking about a very safe floor. You throw in a touchdown, which Zeke can find as well. Now, the Patriots are going to struggle to put up points, but a touchdown is icing on the cake for anything Ezekiel Elliott. So this is just simply taking advantage of opportunity as long as Ramondre Stevenson is out. And it's not going to be pretty. But if we get a few weeks out of Zeke where he gives you 18, I think 18 gives you a top 10 finish in fantasy football most weeks at the running back position. So I think there's a lot of hidden upside here for Zeke down the stretch. He's going to be a top waiver wire ad this week, no doubt, with Ramondre out, but he's a guy who I think has some hidden upside down the stretch to be a playoff hero this year. It's not sexy. It's not this young spring chicken. It's simply a guy who can take advantage of opportunity on an offense that doesn't have many weapons to work with.
Yeah, if you're starting Zeke, do not watch the game. First of all, don't watch any Patriots game right now.
No.
But they're not playing to win anymore. They're they're playing for a draft pick right now. So with Zeke, they're probably just going to give him the ball as much as they possibly can and just be like, hey, let's keep this clock running and get out of here. They play the Steelers this week, which is going to be disgusting. Mitch Trubisky.
On Thursday Night Football. So, what are we doing, NFL? Why? Someone tell me who came up with the schedule at the beginning of the year and thought, I got to go on a rant. That thought it'd be a good idea to put the Patriots with Mac Jones. And nobody.
Mac Jones is Pro Bowler.
And the Steelers. Shut up. Who thought that'd be a good idea to put on Thursday Night Football? Who thought it'd be a good idea to put the Chicago Bears and the Carolina Panthers on Thursday Night Football?
Did you see the graphic they had for the Thursday Night Football game where they picked Bill as the guy they were showing because they didn't have a player? They didn't have a player they could show, so they showed Bill.
I'm sorry, I derailed this, but I'm sorry. I can't believe we're getting yet another trash. Look, Jeff Bezos is like, whatever, money. All I make is money. But come on. Yeah. We as NFL fans deserve better than this.
Yeah.
At least a halfway competent game.
But yeah, I think the other thing too, just thinking about how, the Patriots are going to play, they're not going to rush Ramondre back. Right? Ramondre could be ready he could be ready to come back week 16 and they just go, you're not going to play the rest of the season. Right? That could be we saw that with CMC a couple of years ago. We saw that with Cooper Kupp. Obviously, he's not on that level, but on teams who have a guy get hurt late and they're just like, hey, we're not playing for anything. We'll just shut you down the rest of the season.
Right. Ty has nothing to add.
He doesn't want to Patriots.
No. I'm sick of talking Patriots. I talk about one Patriots player in every single waiver wire video, and I'm sick of it because they don't do anything. We'll talk about a guy later that puts up an average of probably 10, 11 fantasy points a game. That's the only one we're talking about here. And we have to talk and acknowledge Zeke in this moment just because of the situation, but it's gross. It is gross.
Yup.
Yeah, if you don't watch Ty's waiver wire videos, he could use your sympathy as he talks about Patriots players.
Please?
That's every Monday on our YouTube channel. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed and turn on those notifications so you know when that video goes up. But yeah, let's be done talking Patriots. Zeke was gross enough to talk about as it is, but he needed to be on this list. Why don't we take a quick break? We'll be back with 5 more hidden playoff gems when we return. Today's podcast episode is brought to you by our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Now, we love Underdog. It is the easiest place to play best ball formats, and they even have their own form of player props called Pick'em. You can make up to 20 times your money on a single night by correlating props together. 2 picks will triple your money, 3 will 6 times it, 4 will 10 times it, and 5 plays that all hit will multiply your entry by 20. You can even place insurance on your picks too, so if only 4 of your 5 props hit, you still get 10 times your entry. And if you use our code FELLAS when signing up, Underdog is going to double your first deposit up to $100. Alrighty, we are back, and we are going going to finish talking about hidden gem playoff heroes this year. So far, we have covered the likes of Romeo Doubs, Ty Chandler, and Ezekiel Elliott. Cameron, I'll kick it back to you. You're going to talk about another wide receiver here who, similar to Zeke, now has a big opportunity in front of him due to an injury to his teammate. And I think this is actually a sneaky guy that a lot of people, I want to say half the people probably think he's worth it, and half the people are just like, he was a 2-week wonder.
Yeah. And they're probably both right. It's Noah Brown. Tank Dell, I can't do it. Ty laughing, he's throwing me off. Tank Dell got hurt, and which obviously sucks. I mean, that is like,
yeah.
When we talk about like terrible injuries, when you got a rookie playing like this alongside another rookie, and then he gets, that's just like, we want to see the magic happen, and it's gone.
Yeah.
Well, it's not gone, but at least for Tank Dell.
For this year.
So he obviously, Noah Brown obviously isn't a 1-for-1 replacement for Tank Dell. Like they're not going to be able to do that. Nico Collins, Robert Woods, Dalton Schultz, they're all going to have to step up to kind of carry that. But at the same time, we've seen Noah Brown have 153 yards and 170 yards in 2 different games against Tampa Bay, which everyone does that against Tampa Bay, and Cincinnati, who's actually been decent against the pass. He does have 2 tough matchups coming up against the Jets and Cleveland. But we've seen the Cleveland give up big plays. Nakua last week had a 70-yard touchdown.
Denzel Ward.
Josh Downs in week 7, right? So, and that's what Houston does. Like if you have CJ Stroud on and you play on Sleeper, you get a notification that he had a 20-yard play every 5 minutes when they're playing. It is absolutely ridiculous. So they, Cleveland can give up the big play, and the Jets, Jets defense, pass defense has been great, but let's be honest, the Jets are an absolute mess. Their quarterback doesn't want, Zach Wilson doesn't want to play quarterback for them right now. They got no idea what's going on. So anything could happen in that game. And then they also play the Titans twice, and the Titans have been Swiss cheese in the secondary for 2 years in a row. Divisional matchup, the Houston's got to win to get into the playoffs. And what I think of Noah Brown is I think he maybe on this whole list has the highest upside because of what he's stepping into and because of the way Stroud's been playing. But I also think he maybe has the lowest floor. I mean, we're talking about a 7th-year guy who's only had 1 game in his career with over 7 or more receptions. Like, we're not talking about some young rookie who's stepping in, who's looked good a couple. Like, Noah Brown's been around and hasn't done it before. Obviously, we've seen it in those 2 games. So if he can keep up what we've seen, he's going to be fantastic. But we saw last week, I mean, he had two targets. I mean, he was coming out back off the injury, but still, wasn't exactly beautiful. So I think he's one of those guys that's kind of a high risk, high reward play.
So you we mentioned Tank Dell. Dalton Schultz dealing with a hamstring injury too. He was out this last week. We'll see how long he sits out for. Obviously, Brevin Jordan filled in his place as well. But I mean, you're down Tank Dell, and we saw when Nico Collins was out, Dalton Schultz stepped up then as well. Noah Brown stepped up as well. It seems like with CJ Stroud throwing the football this much, the Texans can maintain, 2 very relevant players and one he's startable. And they're down to 2. So we might be down to Nico Collins and Noah Brown in the coming weeks of it. CJ Stroud's got to throw to somebody. And sure, Nico Collins is the alpha now, but again, 150, 170 from Noah Brown. All of a sudden, I think you're right. I think he might actually have the most upside on this list.
Our vote is Noah Brown, but just picture this. Bobby Trees steps up.
Where do you want to send me that sound clip, Ty? I'll play it into my microphone here.
Bobby Trees could have 13 catches on 17 targets and total 44 yards because he can't run more than 7 yards on the field. I love Bobby Trees.
I'm done running.
But when you're joining the Texans late in your career, when you thought they were going to be bad, you're kind of hitting the end.
Yeah, right. And when Noah Brown is actually dominating ahead of you.
I just want to see the legend of Bobby Trees live on. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm
if
saying.
Bobby wants to take the spotlight, I won't hate it. I'd be okay being wrong if Bobby Trees pops off, but I just don't see that happening.
No, again, I'll reiterate, our vote is Noah Brown, and that is the only vote, honestly, for these Texans pass catchers. Like, I was a big fan of John Mechie coming out of the draft, and unfortunately he dealt with cancer and stuff like that. So you really don't know what he looks like at this point, but man, Noah Brown with this situation, and CJ Stroud has been proving it all year long. Why can't he? Why can't he step up?
Yeah, you look at his stretch. I'll add this and then we'll transition. You look at it as from his stats from weeks 8 to 10, just to dive a little bit deeper. Third in yards per route run amongst all wide receivers during that stretch. He was second in yards after the catch, second in PFF receiving grade as well. Only behind, anyone want to take a guess?
I have no idea.
CD Lamb, only behind CD Lamb. So we're talking about a guy who absolutely dominated when given the opportunity. And that could very much be the case once again as we close out the season. Ty, for your second hidden playoff gem, we're going to switch up positions entirely. Not a running back, not a wide receiver.
Not a tight end either.
Not a tight end.
We dodged a bullet there.
Yeah, right. Well, Dalton Schultz, I mean, he comes back healthy.
Freiermuth, anybody?
Hey! No, we're going to the quarterbacks here. And we're going to talk about Geno Smith here. And call it recency bias after putting up 30 fantasy points against the Cowboys. But this is not recency bias. I promise you that there's a legitimate argument with this. But Geno Smith, over the last 4 weeks, he has 2 top 5 finishes. How about that? After having only 1 finish inside the top 10. So, maybe we're bouncing back a little bit. You never know. But look, Geno has a tough matchup in week 14 against the Niners. I don't think many people are expecting the Seahawks to go into Santa Clara and pull off the upset. But after that, he gets Philly, Tennessee, Pittsburgh, and Arizona. Philly and Arizona are top 9 in fantasy points allowed on average, according to Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life. Shout out to all of our friends over at Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life. Great stuff there. But technically, all these games are must wins because at this point, the Seahawks are 6-6 out of the playoffs. They lose to San Francisco, they're 6-7. So technically, all the games are must wins. But specifically, the Tennessee and Pittsburgh matchups, those are must win games because they're better than those teams. Even though the records may not say it, Seattle is the better team in those matchups. Tennessee and Pittsburgh's defenses are known for what? Stopping the run, being good against the run. So how are you going to
sucked at that recently? But continue.
Yeah, well, I think it's more then I guess the argument is, well, then their defense just isn't good because if they're not great against the air, super great against the good, maybe they're just not a great defense.
Your point still stands. Sorry, continue.
No, yeah, for sure. So you got to win those games. How are you going to do it? You got to do it through the air. Okay. You got to do it through the air. And technically, Philly falls into this category too, because that's the way to beat Philly is through the air. Because you're not going to be able to run the ball with Kenneth Walker against Philly, against Pittsburgh or Tennessee. I feel like Tennessee could show up on the day. Anyway, here is an interesting stat that definitely has no correlation at all, just a completely random, unrelated stat to this argument.
Are you being sarcastic?
Very.
Okay, all right. I'm like, I think there's sarcasm in here. I better clarify for those listening to the audio version.
Geno has thrown over 40 passing attempts in just 4 games this year. They averaged 28.5 points. NFL scoring points in those games, not fantasy points. 28.5 points. How many points do you think they average in games where he doesn't throw 40 plus times?
I'm going to guess less based on your argument.
Less, correct. Want to know how much less?
Of course.
18.75. It's a 10-point difference.
That's crazy.
A 10-point difference. And I said to the fellas before we started recording, I have my, strongly disliked list when it comes to coaches. Mike McCarthy, Doug Peterson, Arthur Smith, Kyle Shanahan. I am so close from adding Pete Carroll to that list because you're capping your team at that point. Why is the ball not being thrown more often? I know you have two great running backs in Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet, but your team's not doing it when you're running the ball as much as you want to. So that being said, 10-point difference, maybe Seattle switches things up, especially after coming close against Dallas. Okay. I just want to clarify one more time, though. Totally coincidental, unrelated, random stat. Just doesn't even make sense to this. But hey, here's the stat that really matters for this discussion, though, because we care about fantasy football. How many points does he average in games with 40-plus passing attempts? 23. He averages 23 fantasy points in those games. And where does 23 fantasy points per game rank on the year for quarterbacks? The quarterback 3. I rest my case. There's not much else I can say other than Seattle needs to start throwing the ball more, and the opportunity is there for it.
So I will say this. Geno Smith, his completion percentage is down nearly 5% this year, which I think there is something to say about that. Mostly because you have 4 games left and there's 4 games left and he has basically he in terms of completion, sorry, I'm taking a while to process this. He's had 259 completions this year to 399 last year. So he has basically 4 or 5 games left to complete 140 passes. I don't know if he's going to hit that mark. That would require quite someone do the math, but what, 30 completions a game?
Yeah.
So part of it, I think, is his completion percentage is down. So we're not getting the opportunity to see more fruit from Geno. But at the same time, I do think there is something there in terms of maybe the Seattle Seahawks do need to sling the ball a bit more, especially after adding to their wide receiver room this offseason as well. What do you want to throw on top of that, Cam?
Yeah, I just think, they've got a very talented team. So there's no reason that Geno, shouldn't be putting up fantasy points. This San Francisco game will be interesting. Sometimes, San Francisco plays these divisional rivals real close, and then other times San Francisco just blows these, them out of the water. Yep. We'll see after an emotional game in Philly if they come back and have a letdown game and maybe Geno lights them up, or they just kind of ride the wave and come in a steamroll. Seattle this week, but like you said, moving forward, Philly, Tennessee, Pittsburgh, that's 3 pretty good matchups for you, going into your fantasy playoffs. And so, yeah, I have no quarrel with Geno Smith.
I mean, there is a chance that Philly comes off of this loss to San Francisco just fuming.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean their defense is going to get any better, though. I mean, their defense looked asleep against Brock Purdy, and if Brock Purdy can, hang 4 touchdowns on him and 350 yards on, how many passing attempts do you have?
Hey, let's put some respect on MVP candidate Brock Purdy.
Here's what's sad. Look, notorious Brock Purdy, like
hater,
water cooler here.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
Christian McCaffrey for MVP.
Thank you.
Well,
if there's anyone.
Okay. I can't even get a word in here. I can't even explain my thought process on Brock Purdy.
Well,
I was not going to say Brock Purdy is. I'm not going to say Brock Purdy is the MVP, but does he deserve to be ahead of a few other guys in the conversation? He might. That being said, I think he's like 4th or 5th in line, but I just think we're getting a little bit crazy trying to just force this award to a quarterback, a Jalen Hurts, a Mahomes, a Lamar, who just haven't been playing great this year.
Give it to TJ.
Anyways, yeah, we'll give it to Tyreek. At any rate, let's move on, though, that we're getting off topic with that. I want to talk about one of his wide receivers. And we already talked about DK Metcalf in an earlier episode, so it's not DK Metcalf. It's also not old head Tyler Lockett either. We love our old heads around here. Tyler Lockett's great, but Jaxon Smith-Njigba, all right? He is my second hidden playoff gem. How long have I been on JSN this year saying that he could be a potential league winner down the stretch?
a while.
Week
Yeah.
5, week 6. Whenever
Probably,
I made the if you're 5-0, this is what you got to do. And I said JSN is a guy you should absolutely go trade for. He's going to sit at the end of your bench while the rest of your team dominates. And when he turns it on late in the season, you're gonna thank me later for it. And what did we get in week 13? 11 targets, 7 receptions, 62 yards. It's not a massive fantasy day, but look, anytime a wide receiver sees 11 targets, I am immediately interested because they are involved in this offense. That means it doesn't take a rocket scientist to put that together. And again, Ty, you talked about it. There's going to be plenty of opportunity for him to get more targets, snaps, etc. in the coming weeks. Yeah, San Francisco, Philly, Tennessee, Pittsburgh, Arizona. That is the best wide receiver schedule rest of season.
Mm-hmm.
And I preached this from the get-go. It takes time for these rookie wide receivers to get acclimated to the league. It takes time for them to get more snaps. It's not snacks. Boy, I hope they get snacks. I'd be hungry too if I were working as hard as them. Man, wow.
Man,
clip that. My goodness, I could use a snack right now. Look, it takes time for them to get more opportunity on the field. That's what I'm trying to say, and we're starting to see that for JSN now. When you look at his rest of season schedule, he's not the number one target like Amon-Ra was in Detroit. But when you look at how much green is on his schedule for favorable matchups, Amon-Ra's schedule was like a green light that stayed on for like 20 minutes. Like his schedule was a cakewalk that year. And you're getting that with JSN here at the rest of the season. That was a really bad analogy. I'm just going to move on because look, JSN is my second guy. You liked it? I didn't. I think I didn't
either.
Stupid.
I was just giving you a pity. Like,
I could use those every once in a while.
We all do.
No, I mean, I agree 100%. I love JSN. And to your point, 7 receptions, 11 targets for 62 yards. He barely missed a touchdown, right? He had a 30-yard touchdown. It could have been eight catches, 90 plus yards and a touchdown. And all of a sudden, you're looking at a 23-point week from JSN.
And everybody is screaming about him being a playoff winner then.
Yeah, exactly. And so he's a guy that, moving forward, there's going to be, when we start getting those questions, he's going to be hovering around that wide receiver 24 range, in our weekly rankings coming up. And I think he's going to make some, choices that you're going to have to make very, very difficult because you're going to be looking at it and you're going to go, oh man, I got JSN. And like, if you have like let's say Chris Godwin, right now, I'm probably leaning JSN, and
absolutely.
You asked that 6 weeks ago, and you're like, oh, that's Chris Godwin, every day of the week. And there's going to be a lot more like that where JSN's going to be in that conversation where we probably weren't thinking about that a couple weeks ago.
It's a game we've all played before.
Mm-hmm.
That it's as simple as that. If we haven't figured out that rookie wide receivers turn it on, talented rookie wide receivers turn it on late in the season. Look, like me, like if you're new to fantasy football, I get it. Like this might be your first time ever hearing this, but if you've been around for a while, like this is a game we have all played before. We can predict this before it even happens. And it was written on the wall for JSN. I know there's extra competition there, but he's too talented to not win out in this offense.
I don't want to. Tank Dell just fractured his leg. Okay. So I don't want to make light of his situation, but Tank Dell paved the way so JSN could walk. Just gonna say it. That's how it's going to be for JSN this year. That's how I feel about it.
Well, let's bring it home. Let's talk about another wide receiver. Cam, it's gonna be your last hidden playoff gem. You're still laughing over there.
He said he paved the way so JSN could walk. He's talking about a guy with a fractured ankle who can't not gonna be able to walk normal for like 4 months.
Like I was just trying to gloss over it.
I was trying to gloss over it. Fantastic.
That was. I tried so hard to just move past it.
No, I couldn't let that one go.
Our analogies are terrible this episode. People are going to listen to this and think, who are these dorks trying to talk fantasy football? Ooh. Their analogies are terrible.
Well,
they either suck or they're like inconsiderate and just terrible comments. Ty's going to hide his face the rest of the episode while Cameron and I talk about his next playoff hidden gem.
Ty doesn't want to talk about this guy anyways.
That's fine. You and I can just talk this next guy. I mean, I don't really want to talk about him either, but here we are.
I'll be down here.
Yeah, it's Demario Douglas. And it's another Patriot. You're welcome, Ty. I actually had someone else who I'm not going to say, and I changed it to I'm just kidding. It's been Pop Douglas for me, and the schedule's not great. Let's be honest. He plays Pittsburgh, Kansas City, Denver, and Buffalo. So not exactly what you want to see, especially from the standpoint that the Patriots suck. But let's be honest, there's not really going to be any great matchups for the Patriots, no matter who they play. The one thing that I do like about Pop Douglas, he plays 67% of his snaps out of the slot. So, he's not going to be up against Patrick Surtain when they play him, right? He's not necessarily going to get their number one corner. And what we've seen over his last 6 games is he's been getting volume. He went 6 targets, 6 targets, 7 targets, 7 targets, then 9 targets, 9 targets. And he had 9 targets in that Giants game on only 50% of snaps before he was knocked out with concussion. That's why he didn't play last week. Mm-hmm. So Pop Douglas doesn't have necessarily a ton of upside. But if you need a Band-Aid, if you need a guy that you can go, hey, I need 9 to 14 PPR fantasy points this week. I just need someone who's hopefully not going to give me a 0, and you're not trying to, bank on crazy upside, because you're not getting touchdown upside with a Patriots wide receiver. I'm sorry, you're not. Pop Douglas is going to be that guy, because they have to throw it to somebody. They might want to run it with Zeke every time, but they got to throw it to someone. Pop Douglas is going to be that guy. And let's be honest, Patriots are playing for the 2nd overall pick, so they're not going to be worried about getting Juju Smith-Schuster involved or, stuff like that. They're going to throw it to their young guys and let their young guys do what they can with it. So I think that all bodes well for Pop Douglas. And let's be honest, they're going to be down in every single game. So they're going to have to throw the ball a little bit to at least pretend like they're not tanking.
Oh, and let's not pretend that Bailey Zappi is a guy who can push the ball downfield either, or whatever. They switch back to Mac Jones, whoever's in a quarterback. It's not like they can push the ball downfield. So it's going to be a lot of Zeke in the flats. It's going to be a lot of Pop Douglas over the middle. Yeah, I think it's Pop Douglas to me feels like purely a floor play more than a potential like upside hero. But I mean, who knows? Maybe he does string together 3 games of 16, 17, 18 fantasy points and works his way into a top 15 wide receiver, and you just kind of are disgusted by it. There's an opportunity there, but yeah, I think he's a guy at the very least I think is worthy of a roster spot, considering he is the number 1 option for this New England Patriots team.
Thank you,
Ty flashes a thumbs up. Ty, you can come back in as we talk about this last guy now. I don't know if you really want to actually talk about.
I swear. If it's what? Rondale.
No.
Want it, Rondale?
I mean, it's not Rondale. It is Jordan Love. It's Jordan Love. Green Bay Packers quarterback. You talked about Romeo Doubs earlier, Cameron. Mm-hmm. Like, I think we do have to insert a quarterback in here. I could have thrown Brock Purdy in here, but we all know Brock Purdy's on fire. Could have thrown Dak Prescott. We already talked about Dak Prescott in the Playoff Heroes episode. We already knew he was going to be big time. I think Jordan Love is fringy enough where I don't think a lot of people realize the opportunity he has down the stretch. Last 3 weeks, he's put up 20 plus fantasy points. Week 11, 20.9. Week 12, 26.6 against the Lions, 23.7 against Kansas City. In 4 of his last 5, he has a passer rating of 108 or better. He's thrown for 265 plus yards in 3 of his last 4. He's thrown multiple touchdowns in 4 straight games, including 3 touchdowns in back-to-back games. This is a guy who can get it done on the ground as well. And Cameron, you brought up the schedule earlier. Like, if it bodes well for the likes of Romeo Doubs, Jane Reed, etc., that bodes well for Jordan Love against the Giants, against the Bucks. Again, the Panthers, not a lot of teams that throw against the Panthers, but you get the Vikings and you get Chicago. Like, those are matchups that Jordan Love can take advantage of. So if you're like, it has been a roller coaster for quarterbacks this year. It truly has. We've lost some to injury between bye weeks. Like, we have a bye week in week 14 here. What? Right when fantasy playoffs are about to start or preparing to start. If you're really in a pinch and Jordan Love is out there in your league, like, looking at his schedule down the stretch, he's a guy who I think we could pull through and see borderline top 5 numbers from rest of season if he's going to continue to give you anywhere from 20 to 25 fantasy points a game against defenses that he can expose.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. Like, you want to talk about a guy who's not going to lose you a week at the quarterback position. He's only had 2 games under 15 fantasy points, right? That's something that you need in the fantasy playoffs. Like, if you're looking for a streamer and you're like, man, maybe I'll spot start Gardner Minshew here, and hopefully he goes off. No, he could drop you 6 points. Jordan Love's not going to do that. And Jordan Love's had 6 games with 20 plus fantasy points. That's huge. I mean, we're looking at a guy who's, going into next year, probably going to have to be looked at the same way I feel like Daniel Jones was looked at. Where this year we knew there was going to be, there could be 2 very different outcomes for Daniel Jones. He could continue to be, a top 10 guy because of rushing, because of the way he's moving the ball, or he could fall off the face of the earth. And I think Jordan Love's going to kind of put us in that spot again next year after this playoff stretch.
Yeah, are you just like done for the episode? You're checked out, Ty.
Well, am I out of timeout now? Self-imposed.
You put yourself in the timeout.
I know, self-imposed. I know. I'm just, I'll pat myself on the back after absolutely just destroying my credibility with that Tank Dell comment. I had Jordan Love on my waiver video. Just saying. So,
if you would have listened, you would already be winning.
Yeah.
Well, Jordan Love, I like that you said, Cam, he's not a guy who's going to lose you.
Mm-hmm.
I find it really tough to believe he's going to lose you any of these matchups. Yeah. I don't think he'll lose you your matchup with Carolina Panthers, because that's really the only one that you're worried about in this stretch. And look, he's looked good recently.
Yeah, he has.
Can we just say that? He's looked good.
It's unfortunate, but he has.
Yep.
All right, for Minnesota Vikings fans, yeah, it's unfortunate, but he's looked good. We have to acknowledge that. So, for a guy who has such a great playoff schedule down the stretch, for a guy who's been putting up numbers recently, I think Jordan Love is a guy that, after the first few weeks, you're like, oh my gosh, is he legit? And then he fell off, and everyone's like, yeah, whatever. But now it's like, look, three more at 20 plus. Might gotta start paying attention again. And I think enough eyes are off of him where he's one of these guys that actually is a hidden playoff gem this year. And again, I'm not going to be surprised if he strings you together 3 more games of 20 plus and finishes as a borderline top 5 guy to close out the season.
Yeah.
Anything we want to add before we close it out here? Do we need to just give like a full round of apologies for the terrible analogies and
I never had
inconsiderate analogies? Okay, well, from Ty and I, we sincerely apologize. We went a little off the rails on our analogies today in different ways. Mine just didn't make sense, and Ty was just
attacked him and kicked him while he was down.
Yeah.
He certainly wasn't.
Not your best look, man.
It was supposed to be the most pro JSN comment, and I didn't realize how I was in my self-imposed timeout that I then realized, the leg. It's the leg. It's the injury. My bad. So I'm sorry.
Well,
people.
Since Tank Dell is 100% listening to this episode, we are sorry, Tank. I
bet you're the nicest guy on planet Earth. I bet you are.
Yeah, and we know he's listening. I mean, he 100% is. So we are sorry, Tank.
If you're still feeling down, I'll pick you.
Hey, jingity jing. It's Dominic the donkey. Jingity jing. The Italian Christmas donkey.
The fact that you guys have synchronized the head bops, it's stuff of nightmares.
So if you're listening on Spotify, Ty's telling you now you got to watch on YouTube just to see what he's talking about.
You can find us on YouTube, Fantasy Football Fellas. You can find us on TikTok and Facebook as well at Fantasy Football Fellas. You can follow us on Twitter, FF Fellas over there, the FF Fellas on Instagram. I'm at Lucas Wenzel on Twitter, at Camlaw FFF, and Tyler_Plath. If you're not subscribed to the audio podcast already, we are grateful for you all. Had a few people send us that we are their most listened to podcast this year.
Oh my gosh.
We are super that makes us extremely happy because like the podcast started out as our like baby, basically. Like that's the thing we'll always love and treasure the most. But then we started to explode on, for our other social media content on TikTok and our shorts on YouTube and our shorts on Instagram. And so we started focusing a lot of time into that. But the podcast is something that we always just love and value dearly. So the fact that that you all are listening to it. It warms our heart to see that, and we are so grateful for those of you, no matter how long you've been on the ride, that you support the podcast. So we're very, very grateful for you. Not that we aren't grateful for all of our followers, but for you especially. You have a special place in our hearts. So we do thank you for that. With that, I don't think we have anything more to add. We will see you all later this week. We'll go through some start-sit decisions that you need to make in every single matchup ahead of week 14, ahead of potentially the first round of your playoffs or your last chance to make the playoffs. Until then, we'll be back on Wednesday. Cam will do must-start players for week 14, but then we're off on Friday. We are joining our friends of Underdog Fantasy down in Miami, Florida. So we will be away for the weekend. There will be no live on Sunday as well, but I will make sure we put out some sort of a start-sit thread, some sort of a comment section Q&A where we won't have a video for you all, but I mean, Ty and I will be on a flight home. We're getting ready to hop on a plane home where we can answer some start-sit questions in the meantime. So with that, thanks for tuning in. Thanks as always. We appreciate you all for listening. Make sure you subscribe. Turn on those notifications as well, so you know when all of our new videos are up. Until next time, stay healthy, stay safe, and deuces.
Deuces.
Deuces.